2 weeks after my daughter's wedding, I was reviewing security footage in my warehouse when my coffee cup slipped right out of my hand. There on the screen, clear as daylight, was Beverly, my daughter, in her wedding dress, locked in an embrace with Richard Lawson, the married CEO of her company. The timestamp read 2:17 p.m., exactly 2 hours before she walked down the aisle to marry Victor. I rewound it, watched it again. Then I sat very still for a long time. My name is Eugene Richardson. I'm 58 years old. I spent 40 years building Richardson Construction Supply from nothing into one of Phoenix's most respected businesses. Started as a high school kid loading trucks in 1983 for $3.50 an hour. Worked my way through every department until the owner was ready to retire in 1995 and offered to sell me the company. I took every penny I had, borrowed the rest, and didn't sleep properly for 3 years. Now we have 3 warehouses across the valley, 45 employees, contracts with half the major builders in Arizona. My reputation is built on one principle. When Eugene Richardson shakes your hand, that's your contract. No games, no surprises, no small print that screws you over later. I raised Beverly and her younger sister Nancy after their mother Linda died from cancer 8 years ago. Beverly was always the success story. Arizona State degree, good job at Pinnacle Tech Solutions BMW, apartment in Tempe, independent. Everything a father wants for his daughter. Nancy was a different situation. 5 years of finding herself, teaching, real estate, graphic design, something called lifestyle coaching that mostly involved posting motivational quotes on Instagram. When her divorce finalized 3 years ago, she asked to stay in my guest house temporarily. Her boyfriend Gerald moved in 6 months later. Temporary had stretched into 3 years. No rent, no end date, just constant requests and Gerald acting like he owned the place. But Beverly was different, until that Tuesday morning. The wedding had cost me $67,000. Beverly wanted the Phoenician resort for the reception, the desert botanical garden for the ceremony, a photographer from Los Angeles, and a band that had played some celebrity wedding in Malibu. Daddy, this is my special day. I want it to be perfect. 200 guests. The gift table overflowing with envelopes. I remember standing at the reception watching Beverly dance with Victor, thinking I had never been prouder. Victor Martinez was everything I'd hoped for in a son-in-law. Software engineer, steady. Treated Beverly like she was the only person in the room. He'd asked my permission before proposing. Sat in my office on a Saturday morning, nervous as a man could be. Mr. Richardson, I love your daughter more than life itself. I promise I'll take care of her. I shook his hand and told him to call me Eugene. Now I was staring at the security screen, wondering how I had missed everything. I sat in my locked office and watched the footage 4 more times, 2:15 p.m. Beverly and Lawson arrived separately, 2:17 p.m. The embrace, urgent, familiar, nothing hesitant about it. 2:23 p.m. They disappeared inside through the employee entrance. I had given Beverly those access codes years ago. For emergencies. 2:51 p.m. They emerged, Beverly adjusting her dress, Lawson checking his phone like a man with places to be. 2:53 p.m. They left separately. 36 minutes. She had spent 36 minutes with her lover in my warehouse, then driven straight to her wedding ceremony and looked Victor in the eyes while promising to forsake all others. I printed screenshots, saved the files to a secure drive. Then I called Danny Torres, my IT specialist. Danny, I need you here now. Security footage analysis, and Danny, and keep this between us. He arrived in 30 minutes, took one look at the footage and whistled low. 2 hours later, he handed me a flash drive and a folder of technical documentation. Digital fingerprints, file verification, camera angle analysis. It's all authentic, Mr. Richardson. Timestamps match the camera logs. GPS data confirms location. This would hold up in any court. After he left, I sat alone with the evidence spread across my desk. Beverly's arms around Lawson's neck, the metadata, the timestamps, and Lawson's wife, who had attended the ceremony and shaken my hand during the receiving line. The phone rang at 11. Beverly's voice, bright, cheerful, the tone she'd used since childhood when she wanted something. Daddy, Victor, and I are house hunting in Scottsdale. We found an amazing place, 4 bedrooms, pool, mountain views. We need help with the down payment, just $40,000. You understand, right? After everything you spent on the wedding, this is just completing the picture. $40,000. Delivered like she was asking to borrow my truck. Let me think about it, sweetheart. This is important, Daddy. The house won't wait forever. I hung up without answering. Then I drove to her apartment in Tempe and waited. At 5:30 p.m., Beverly emerged in a red dress I had never seen. She drove straight to the Ritz-Carlton downtown. I followed at a distance, feeling like a man in a bad movie, and watched from the lobby while my daughter sat close with Lawson at the hotel bar, her hand covering his on the small table, laughing like a woman with nothing to hide. She was still wearing her wedding ring. I drove home to Paradise Valley in a daze. Inside, Gerald was sprawled across my leather recliner, beer in hand, watching my television. He glanced up when I walked in. "Hey, Eugene, grab me another beer while you're up." I stood in my own entryway. "Get your own beer, Gerald." He looked genuinely surprised. Nancy appeared from the kitchen, phone to her ear, laughing loudly. She gave me a dismissive wave. "Daddy always comes through," I heard her say as she disappeared upstairs. I went to my home office and closed the door. Wednesday morning, I called in sick for the first time in 40 years of business. By evening, I had appointments with Arthur Coleman, the best real estate attorney in Phoenix, and a private investigation firm specializing in matrimonial fraud. Thursday evening, Nancy knocked on my office door with that sweet tone she used when she wanted money. Gerald had a food truck opportunity. Phoenix was perfect for it. They just needed startup capital. $35,000. She said guaranteed like she was doing me a favor. "And where would you operate it?" "Gerald knows the permitting process. Maybe some of your construction sites if you could help us get permits." My construction sites, my reputation, my connections. To fund a scheme that would probably fail in 6 months. "No, Nancy." Her face changed. "What do you mean, no? Find jobs, pay rent, grow up." She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I turned back to my computer and continued my research. Friday morning in Arthur Coleman's office, I spread the security footage printouts across his mahogany desk and told him everything. He studied the images, made notes, then looked up. "Eugene, this could be more than adultery. If Beverly married Victor under false pretenses, if she was planning divorce from the beginning to collect assets, that's fraud. The wedding gifts alone would constitute theft by deception." He slid a card across the desk. "Margaret Reeves, former FBI white-collar crimes, now private practice. If your daughter is running a con, Margaret will find it." I called Margaret from Arthur's office. She was direct, professional, no wasted words. $5,000 retainer. 6 to 8 weeks for a complete investigation. "Mr. Richardson, if your daughter is sophisticated enough to coordinate wedding fraud, there will be digital evidence. Shell companies, hidden accounts, communication records. My team specializes in following money trails." I wrote the check. Margaret Reeves delivered her preliminary report 6 weeks later. What she found was worse than I had imagined. Beverly had opened a shell company 3 months before the wedding. BRM Consulting LLC. Every wedding gift, every check and cash envelope from that overflowing table had been deposited into that company account, not into any joint account with Victor. The business registration listed Beverly as sole owner, with an address that turned out to be a UPS mailbox in Scottsdale. "Your daughter has been planning this for at least 6 months, Margaret said, spreading financial documents across the conference table. Shell company formation, consultation with a divorce attorney, research into Arizona's community property laws. This wasn't a crime of passion, Mr. Richardson. This was premeditated fraud." The text messages were the worst part. Months of communication with a divorce attorney who specialized in high-asset dissolution. The strategy was clear. Collect maximum wedding gifts, file for divorce after 6 months claiming domestic violence, and walk away with everything while Victor faced false abuse allegations that would destroy his reputation and career. She had even purchased a small camera marketed for documenting domestic incidents. Receipts showed she bought it 2 weeks after the wedding. Victor was completely innocent. The investigation showed no knowledge of Beverly's plans, no involvement in the financial schemes, He was exactly what he had always appeared to be, a decent man who had fallen for the wrong woman. "There's more," Margaret said, pulling out another folder. "Your younger daughter Nancy has been telling friends and family that she's staying at your house to care for her grieving father. She's been using your wife's death to justify the arrangement." The recordings were devastating. Nancy on the phone with her cousin in Tucson, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate poor Daddy, who was so lost without Mom. Gerald bragging to his friends about living rent-free in Paradise Valley, because the old man feels sorry for us. 3 years. My own daughter's treating me like a mark in a long con. Sunday evening arrived gray and cool. I set the dining room table myself. Linda's good china, cloth napkins, candles. At my place, I put the manila folder. 63 pages of investigation results, financial records, legal documents, and photographs. They arrived within 15 minutes of each other. Beverly and Victor first, relaxed, happy. Beverly kissed my cheek and complimented the table. Victor shook my hand and asked if I needed help. Nancy and Gerald came in arguing, Gerald complaining about a job interview, Nancy defending some online course she'd bought with grocery money I'd given her. We sat down. Roast chicken, small talk, Victor's software project, Gerald's job search, Nancy's latest certification. Then I opened the folder. Before we continue, there's something everyone needs to see. I slid the first photograph across to Beverly. Security footage. Timestamp visible. October 12th, 2:17 p.m. Her face went completely white. "Daddy, where did you get this?" "My warehouse security system. 2 hours before your wedding ceremony." Victor picked up the photograph and studied it for a long moment. I continued. Bank records showing BRM Consulting LLC. Text messages with the divorce attorney. Financial analysis showing every wedding gift diverted to the shell company. Purchase receipts for the documentation camera. "Victor, my investigation shows you are completely innocent. Beverly has been planning to divorce you since before the wedding. The marriage was financial fraud designed to collect gifts and destroy your reputation with false abuse claims." Beverly stood so fast her chair fell backward. "This is insane. You hired investigators to spy on your own daughter." "Nancy. Gerald." I continued without raising my voice. "You've lived in my house for 3 years without paying rent, while telling people you're caring for me. My investigator has recordings of you laughing about manipulating your grieving father." Gerald started to stand. "You can't just throw us out, we have rights." I reached into the folder. Eviction notices. 30 days. And Beverly. Criminal complaints have been filed with the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. Fraud, theft by deception, conspiracy. You should expect a visit from detectives this week. The room erupted. Beverly screaming, Gerald cursing, Nancy crying that I was tearing the family apart over misunderstandings. Victor sat silently, staring at the evidence spread across Linda's good china. His face cycling through confusion, hurt, and something that finally settled into clarity. "Dad." Nancy tried through her tears. "We can work this out. We're family. Family forgives." I stood and pushed back my chair. Family doesn't steal from each other, Nancy. Family doesn't lie and manipulate and exploit. You stopped being family when you decided I was nothing more than a bank account with emotions you could manage. I walked to my office and closed the door. 3 months later, it was over. Beverly pled guilty to reduced charges and agreed to full restitution of the wedding gifts. She moved to California. Nancy and Gerald found jobs in a cheap apartment across town. Victor's marriage was annulled. He kept his job, his reputation, and his dignity. I changed the locks, updated my will, and discovered something I hadn't expected. My house was quiet. For the first time since Linda died, I could live entirely on my own terms. The security cameras are still running, but these days they mostly record the quiet life of a man who finally learned the difference between being loved and being used. Family isn't about blood. It's about respect, honesty, and genuine care for each other. I'm 58 years old. And I understand now that it's never too late to demand the respect you deserve, even from family, especially from family.